Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Our friend Neo is enjoying the wonderful aspects of being a father to a preschooler. He's picked up a preschool bug, so he's not going to be able to join us today. But Neo, we wish you health and wellness as soon as possible, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week. But Debbie G is here. She is in the house, and she's just telling me she's got a really cool thing going on. You tell us what's going on. You just dropped a couple cool bombs on me. Drop it on the audience. This is great stuff.
Yeah, we are launching unify.org. Millions of people around the world actually are involved with this for International Peace Day, which is on the 21st of September, so coming up next week. And there's interviews from Jonathan Granoff, from the Secretary of State, all kinds of beautiful things happening at the UN. But right on Unify, which is the coolest part, is we have the top leaders from all over the world. And from Saviji to the Dalai Lama, we've got Sunday afternoon, actually, Ben Baller is going to have an incredible interview between Deepak Chopra and Jonathan Granoff. And it's going to be it's going to be phenomenal. I cannot wait. So I want to tell everybody that there is an opportunity for you to be part of everything happening with Unify. And that is simply to submit to me, Debbie at unify.org. Submit a meditation, a practice of peace to me. That would be super. Also, just submit your information, period. If you have a meditation going on the day of peace, we will put you on our peace map, which is totally awesome. So.
Love it. Well, you also dropped another, you got to tell people the other part too, because that was pretty cool.
The other part?
About New York City.
About New York. I'm going to tell you about New York. So, and I was trying to pull this up, and for some reason, I'm being silly right now.
You're feeling good. That's why.
I am. I definitely. Okay, come on now. Okay. I'm going to tell you. I did a promo video, and it was played in Times Square, New York.
Woo!
For Unify. So I was like, yeah, it was kind of cool.
Yeah,
honestly.
really.
Like, oh my gosh. And I'm going to get the video pulled up and I'll let you guys see it because it was actually pretty cool. And other than that,
like there needs to be more.
Well,
seriously, that's pretty cool stuff going on right there.
Right now, I'm looking at a view of nothing but trees outside this window and sitting here in a lot of gratitude because this house, as you guys can see behind me, and those who are just on there listening, a podcast, what I'm showing them is some spectacular wood behind me. And one of these times when I'm going to show everybody the house here in Colorado, because it's a beautiful little sanctuary. And then I'm done because I want to see what's all about Jerry. And that's what this is about.
Absolutely. This is true. So we're going to bring Jerry on. Jerry, by the way, what she's downplaying there, she's got this house that she talks about here is a beautiful retreat center that she and her husband have bought in Colorado that they're working on building up right now. This is very cool stuff that's going on right now. So just want everybody to know about that. But we do need to let people know about Jerry Fu, who is our guest today. He's a conflict resolution coach, interestingly, for Asian American leaders. That's an interesting vertical right there to pick. I imagine it's because it matches his heritage, but I would be curious to know more about that. But he's interested in a lot of the kinds of stuff we talk about here, and that's why I was so interested in having him on the program. But I'm going to let him tell his own story. So, Jerry, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Oh man, Fridays are happy days, right? Especially with fun conversation and people who are fun. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
We are all about the fun. I mean, you saw the subtitle, right? Your daily dose of happy.
Yeah.
No pressure. I'm just saying.
No, I can't take the smile off my face.
That's right. Yes. So tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, little bits about me. Yeah, I felt like I had an identity crisis growing up, being too American for my Taiwanese relatives, and then, just feeling like a foreigner for, getting picked on as a kid because, I'm supposed to speak Wang Chong Ching Chong Chang.
Of course, so, yeah. What's wrong with you? Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, seriously. Overall, my childhood was fine. I grew up in Wisconsin originally because that's where my parents finished grad school, coming over from Taiwan. My dad's job was definitely a weird path. We moved to Tennessee when I started 6th grade, finished high school there, went to Houston for undergrad, and that was definitely a culture shock. I didn't even know how to eat tamales when I first got there. I'm not kidding. Like I ate them with the husk on, and I was like, "What is so great about this stuff?" And that was a rude awakening in culture. And so in the middle of college, thought I'd like the idea of being a doctor or a physician, but didn't quite have the strong enough compelling reason to become a physician. So didn't put the work in. I still wanted to do healthcare. So I chose pharmacy and, convinced pharmacy school I'd be a good pharmacist. And they thought I would be too. So thankfully finished that out. Worked for a chain pharmacy for the first 5 years of my career because my mom didn't want me to struggle with the same challenges my dad did in his career, despite having 2 master's degrees. And then after I realized that the stability she wanted me to have came at too big a cost otherwise, I said, you know what? I need something else. I need a job that I'm actually excited to work at. And so leveraged my connections to take on a teaching position through a pharmacy consulting company that I moved to Houston for 12 years ago. Proceeded to get fired 11 months later because I just wasn't serious enough about the job. And next reality check happened very quickly after that, where I stumbled into a job where 4 of my paychecks bounced filling for crooked doctors. So I'm jeopardizing my license and this boss isn't even paying me for it. Then I get out of that job after chasing down enough bad paychecks. And the next company that is more legitimate that my friends helped me get on with said, hey, we like you, but we can't pay you more than 8 hours a week. And so I said, well, what do I do? And they said, well, you can cover at our Austin location, which is 2.5 hours away. I could end up in worse cities, but, beggars can't be choosers. So I guess I'm going to Austin. That summer was key. This is 10 years ago now. That summer was key because I was tapped to help facilitate some leadership workshops to a pharmacy leadership nonprofit that some of my friends run. And they said, hey, we know you've been helping facilitate workshops for, the pharmacy fraternity, but how about this one? And I said, yeah, let me jump in. And teaching leadership kind of changed my mind about whether or not I could be a good leader. Because before I didn't believe that I could, right? And if I don't believe I can, how am I supposed to become a good leader, right?
Right.
It's a tough ceiling to put on yourself. And so when a full-time position opened up in Houston later that year, by now I'm just sitting there thinking, well, what if I could be a good leader, right? Maybe this possibility is actually with my permission could actually become a reality. And so ready to come home, ready to sleep in my own bed again, ready for the things that I considered home. And initially just exhaled, thankful to be back in Houston with a job and full-time salary and benefits. Woo, hadn't had that in a while. And then I proceed to get written up 11 months later because my technicians are not pulling their weight and I'm not writing them up or firing them. And so management said, their behavior is a problem and your passivity is a problem. So while I'm on probation, the company has their funding pulled. And I say, well, now what? And the only reason I get an interview with my next job is that I have leadership experience on my resume now. And so I said, wow, leadership saved my career. And then from there, these jobs that would be more available to me were still like icebergs. They like melt after 1 or 2 years, right? They're just kind of like, hey, this business model sucks, but hey, at least I got a year's work out of it. So, okay. And so 5 years ago, when my former employer went under for insurance trauma and things, I said, I'm tired of begging scripts from doctors. I'm tired of fighting insurance contracts that dictate my worth, but I love people development. What if I tried to become a full-time coach and facilitator for leadership stuff? Because I know how I wish I'd been developed, and still very scared of failing rejection. And so it was just like a hobby, right? Well, you paid me $50 to teach you stuff, right?
Right.
Nothing close to like career pivot. And so in the heart of the pandemic was in the middle of my coaching training. So now I'm getting to know coaches. Yeah. And so everything went virtual. So they were ahead of the curve, ironically. And so I said, between turning 40 and the pandemic, and, I just said, well, I'm learning how to actually get some skin in the game. So why don't I get some skin in the game? And filed the LLC 2 years ago, this October, next month, actually. And, the only reason I survived my first year in business was that I appeared on 70 podcasts while I did private tutoring, because I still, again, very scared to move more quickly. And I also realized I had to niche down. So this is where it comes to full circle to the question you wanted me to answer, right? Which is I realized my biggest target to work on was having and initiating difficult conversations. Right. And so I said, my ideal client is who I was 10 years ago. Right. Or that's what just the saying in the coaching world to say, who was your ideal client? It's like who you were 10 years ago. So, new managers, right. Mid-level managers to say, hey, how do I confront a boss who's treating me poorly? Right. How do I deal with direct reports that are pulling their weight? Like, I don't like having these conversations. How do I have a conversation with my mom and dad when they don't like the career path I've chosen for myself? And so, the benefits of working with me, hey, let's give you a script, right? Let's iron out your phrasing so that you come across as confident and eloquent. And then number two, let's remind you of the cost of not following through with this conversation. And usually conflict averse people like me, right, don't realize that not having the conversation costs you. It's like, are you willing to settle for being resentful the rest of your life?
Yeah, I love this. Well, I want to kind of jump in because I want to I want to touch on a couple key points that you made that I'm really digging. One is you said a very valuable word, and that was you gave yourself permission.
Yeah.
So let's just, in evaluating that's a really important step in our decision making. And I love that. The next was understanding and identifying what's really needed here. What is actually needed for others. And the reason I appreciate this so much is because it's along the Nonviolent Movement Act that we are all in right now. And it's really because conflict resolution is within the scope of everything that's nonviolent communication. But I would love to know what is your practice with people that, for instance, what is it? I understood you do a script with them to help them redefine how that they're stating something to have more confidence, but also how do you teach them their worth, that they can do this? How do you show them to give permission through your example?
Yeah. So let me take a real client case, right? We'll keep it's obviously confidential. No names and company, you'll never know. But it's not hard to figure out that this probably happens at more than one company, right? So one of the guys I know, he's like, I've been promoted to, supervisor of my team, and I've been in my role for 3 months now. And so far, most of it's really great. And there is this one guy on my team that I inherited who's been there like 10 years. And he's mad that he hasn't gotten the promotion. But like all his previous supervisors tried to give him feedback, and every time they tried to tell him what he needed to work on, he would get all defensive. Like he would say, "Oh yeah, coach me, I'm ready for this." And it's like, "Well, you have this and this." Oh, no, right? And then people like the idea of constructive criticism until they actually have to receive it, right? And so,
well, I love that.
Yeah.
Usually because we haven't created space and container for that to even happen, and so. Yeah, it can be corrective criticism can feel attacking, or criticizing for certain, but their perception. They hadn't done their work. That's what you're there to teach them. So keep going.
Yeah. So, my client's like, hey, how do I navigate this, right? How am I supposed to get him to take my feedback seriously when all these other supervisors clearly gave up on him and just kind of left me to kind of clean up the pieces, right? And which is always great, right? Because you're just like, great, you didn't deal with the situation on your watch. And so, you clean up the Syria mess because, nobody else wants to deal with it. But we're not here to talk about Syria. We're here to talk about conflict or, personal conflict. So all that to say, right? So in the same way I gave myself permission to possibly become a good leader, I basically, my first step of my framework, the 5-step framework I usually walk people through is to give yourself permission to imagine what a successful conversation would sound like, right? And so I would ask him, what does a successful conversation sound like? Do you believe that's even possible? Yeah. I mean, because what happens, right? People go in there, they don't even think about how to make it successful. They're just like, oh, I don't know how this is going to go, but I just got to charge in there. And, it's points for courage, but,
I got a question. But what if they come back? What if they come back at you and they go, but there's just no point?
But there's just no point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me imagine this. Well, I could do that, but there's just no point.
Yeah, it's a fair question, right? And you just have to ask them, where's this pessimism coming from?
Bingo.
You're like, and that's fair. I mean, yeah, I get it. People want to be realistic because I don't want to fail at this, right? I don't want to look like a bad
failure. Okay.
I tried.
Fear of failure. Woo.
Fear of failure, the fear of perception of being incompetent. That's also another fun.
Oh,
right? So,
say that one more time. That was music.
I'm feeding off Debbie all this. I love it. Yeah,
you're getting the full Debbie G treatment. I'm just letting you know. This is like the full Debbie G treatment right now.
Oh, I mean, like, he's, your other partner's missing out, right? Because he's just like, oh, sorry, I got sick.
Oh, Neil would be jumping again, believe me.
Yeah, I know. I got more playing time on the court. I get to pick Jerry apart. Here we go. So that's what I say. I'm just like, oh, more for me, right? I get to ask more questions.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let me.
I
want you to repeat that. Yes, but to kind of open that up. It's my field of study.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This is what I do. And it's the hardest thing in the whole world. And I got to tell you, I think that to focus on conflict resolution, actually, it warms my heart because truly it's the hardest thing that all of us face. And in conversation, in communication. So that's the reason I'm digging you, because you're just like, you vibe with me. I love that. I mean, digging it. But please, now that I've said that, just repeat that, please.
Yeah. Like it's the fear of looking incompetent, right? Because I don't want people to think that I don't know what I'm doing. Because if this conversation goes poorly and like my supervisors find out about it, like what does that say about me? Maybe I'm not that good a leader. Right.
Isn't it interesting how it always goes back to what's going on inside?
Oh, yeah.
Always.
Every single time, without exception. It's one of the only truisms you can always find to be true in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I like the death and taxes one, too. That's a fun one.
But this is a more positive one because at least
I know, right? We need more positive ones. That's the difference. Like the negative ones are going to be there whether we like it or not, but the positive ones, hang on to those. Those are gems. So to finish out this case study, right? So the first is to ask him, hey, do you even believe, like, what would a successful conversation sound like? And he's like, well, let's prep him properly to say, hey, look, man, do you let's reassure him first, right? Hey, do you believe I want to help you get this promotion, right? Well, yeah, okay. All right. So now that we understand that we're teammates, right? Because we both want you to get this promotion. Are you willing to handle feedback? Are you willing to consider feedback that might be uncomfortable? And you just ask for permission from the start, right? Because you have to prep them. Because if he says, you know what, I really don't like hearing stuff that's difficult and just things that just make me feel incompetent or feel like I'm not doing my job. So I just, that just threatens my identity that I was a good employee. So I'd rather not just go over this hard feedback, even though I know like this is the obstacle between me and the promotion I want. And then you say, okay, well then, if you're not going to take my feedback seriously or at least consider it, then, what's the point of having this conversation?
Yes.
Right. Like, how do you expect to get this promotion unless you actually consider the hard and difficult things that you need to work through and overcome in order to actually meet management standards? And so now you start to finesse. And so you say, you know what, if he, ideally it could just be that simple. Hey, this is what I'm willing to give you. Are you willing to take it? Yes. All right. Let's work on it. Right. Is it realistic? No. But is it possible? That's what we're going for. Right. So
there's a great quote that comes from the Apple TV series, Ted Lasso, that just comes to my mind in this one. The quote is this: the truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off.
Oh, that's a meme.
Isn't that great?
Oh, my stars. The truth will set you free, but first it's going to piss you off. And the gods sing. And the gods. Well, here, Jerry, I just want to tell you that, you see, here's the cool part about everything that you're talking about right now is the fact that it's what we do in our active daily lives. So, the fact that you're doing it in their employment is great because that's where they're spending so much time. But imagine they're going to go back and I can't wait to hear what happened with this case study. But there's some very, very key components that you've done there. You said you asked permission for him to give permission. And I love that. And everybody, that's a really big tool in communication is request. And the request is, when the request denied, I love that you're just like, Well, if you're not willing to do it different, then and I always say this: if you're not willing to do it different, then how do you think it's going to change?
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Like, if nobody's willing to do the shit that they got them there to begin with, you can't keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and think that you're going to get a different result. We all know that's insanity.
That's the AA, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is, but really, why do you think we get so stuck in our stuckness that we aren't even willing to see that there's the possibility to learn? Is it the comfort, or is it fear? Is it the fear?
They're going hand in hand, don't they?
Did you say sphere or fear?
Fear. I said fear.
I was like, what sphere is he talking about?
Fear with a list.
I'm going to throw in answer number 3, which is identity, because people don't like to threaten their identity, right?
Boop, 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 boop. I just, thank you. It is identity. It's what that we think that we are based upon the external evidence. Yeah. Oh, okay. Rock on.
I mean, it's all 3 of the answers are correct. It's just usually some toxic mix of the 3, right? You're just like, ugh, like this is new and uncomfortable, and I don't like it because, it's not what I'm used to, right? I mean, one side example is when one of my Hispanic friends wants his son to learn Spanish, but his mom's first language is English, and so every time he tries to talk to his son in Spanish, his son will respond in English, and he frustrates him to no end. But right, as long as he has the opportunity to respond in English and he knows his dad can understand English, he's going to use English because he doesn't want to look incompetent. Like, he's 5 and he's already self-conscious about his Spanish. Like, isn't that scary? So yeah, anyway, yeah, I mean, part of it is people just don't want to admit that sometimes we're lazy, flaky, and selfish, right? We're just like, I don't want to admit that. I just showed up late again because I just really wasn't that on the ball this morning. And you're just like,
but that is the truth, right?
Okay, but there's another piece to it too, I think, and that is, how much pain are you in? I
There
mean,
you go.
how many times have we heard stories here on the program from people who, they had one thing after another until they finally hit what was their rock bottom, and what that meant was it hurt too much to stay there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's valuable stuff. I hope, listeners, you are soaking this in with everything you have got.
Yeah. Well, take good notes. It's fun.
Take good notes.
Seriously, take good notes. Well, what's funny is is owning our truth and being humbled into that space. The humility is the way to grace, which is the fragrance of God.
There you go.
And through that's that humility into just being human. And when you're late, going, why are you late? Because I screwed up.
Well, there's a novel answer. You don't hear that one every day.
I screwed up.
The best answer I like to use is, I underestimated the amount of traffic this morning.
And I love that. And I love that, and getting into chitty chitty Jake and chitty chitty bang bang, and it was being dysfunctional.
Well,
but really,
it doesn't work for me, because for me, my commute is from my bedroom to my office. I mean,
well, yeah,
it's
right?
there's not a whole lot. It's like trip over the cat. That's about it,
But okay, so back.
I would still use that answer. Yeah, traffic was terrible this morning.
So Jerry, I'm digging you. I know you're helping people out there, and that's like those are my kind of favorite people in this whole world, which tells me that there are some pieces of your life that this is really enhanced. And I'd like to know, how is this doing in your personal relationships? Because I'm going to tell you, as much as I study communication, and right now my favorite class is interracial communication, which is the bombest. I'm in college. It's like the bombest class. And I say this because I literally have a thing for everything communication. But it's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
In our own life. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I need a therapist. So I'm just kidding. I'm up in high elevation, everybody, and I'm normally at sea level. Just so that we all know, Walt, I'm always like this. I don't even know why.
Continuously. This is what I love about you. Are you kidding?
Like, he coming back. Yeah. He wants his ultras on the court.
At the very least, the entertainment value is wonderful, and then you have actual insight to bring to it. It's like, oh wow, 2 for 1. I love this.
Yeah. Stop that some more. Okay, so back to stop that. All right, but for real, like
Mhm.
we are always trying this stuff out ourselves, and one of the things I've been really having to try out lately in my own life is the willingness to learn something new.
Mm.
And so how is this how are these tools that you have, how have you seen your own relationships really start to either show what they needed to, be what they need to, or whatever it is that it might be doing?
Yeah, yeah. I'll give two examples. One before I kind of developed my own system to compensate for my terrible tendencies, and then one after I kind of realized like I overlaid this framework, to this situation. So situation number one is when a friend of mine would like to make vague yeses whenever we would invite him to stuff. For some reason, he was just too afraid to say no, or if it was just like a cultural rudeness to not say not say no beginning, right? Hey, we got tickets to this basketball game. You want to come watch? Oh, I'd love to. I don't know my schedule, but I'm pretty sure it'll work out, right? And so me being optimistic would buy him a ticket, and then he didn't show up, right? And then later we tell him, hey Frank, what happened? From what I understand, like you thought you were going to try to make it to the game. Oh no. And I'm just like, okay, no. And I just didn't have the courage, or I didn't have the wherewithal to be upfront with them and say, hey man, I worked hard for that money that I spent on you, that you basically, like, it's one thing if you just apologize and said, okay, you know what? Like, I know myself well enough to say, hey, I have this terrible habit. Please don't, buy a ticket for me. I'll buy my own ticket. Right. That would be ideal, but that didn't happen.
Would be.
Right. And so eventually, like, I just distanced myself enough because I'm just like, I can't deal with Frank and I hate his habits, but I don't know how to bring this up in a way that he's just going to convince me that I'm the one that's in the wrong. So I'm just going to flush this friendship like entirely. And that's basically what happened. Right. And no one wants to admit that, geez, Jerry, that's kind of difficult. You're like, have you been so conflict averse where you'd rather just like clear the path so you don't have to have these things?
I have.
All right. So
I call it the guillotine.
So that's
the guillotine. The guillotine method.
There you go.
You're done.
There you go. Okay.
Done.
Oh crap! I flaked. Well, don't want to have that confrontation. Yeah. Why'd you block my phone number? Why'd you get a burner phone? I have no idea. Right? It's much.
Right. Exactly. Right. I haven't heard from you. But yeah, are we not friends on Facebook? What happened? So,
right.
I mean, literally, that's the do all be all, is like, you've unfriended me. But really, what I heard you saying, he didn't meet your value for just straight up truth, honesty, or commitment, both.
Yeah. It's like you're afraid to tell me no, and think that I'm somehow like you're a bad friend. You don't want to look like a bad friend for turning down my invitation, or you just don't want the initial conflict of, well, why don't you want to come? Like if you're already anticipating, oh, he's probably just going to try to persuade me, so let me just give him a politician's promise that doesn't get anywhere, right? So yeah, boundaries for sure. Just, hey man, if you don't get me money by this day when I buy tickets, I'm not buying you a ticket, right? And that's I'll own up to my situation to
rock that
flaw, right? So situation number two. So this is something where I had to kind of basically get dragged through the mud and come out on the other side and realize that, what, I can just wash the mud off. Like, I hate going through the mud, but then you realize you can just wash off the mud, right? So I had to evict a roommate a couple of years ago. Let me tell you, that's not a situation they give you in life's manual. By the way, you might have to evict somebody, and this is how you do it, right? And so much like the bad boss, like, how do you confront the boss who's ripping you off? Like, they don't tell you these things. So for this roommate, right? Yeah, he defaulted on his lease. And so me as his landlord and his roommate, that's just an awkward situation. It's one thing if you're like the landlord that never is there, right? And you just show up and you can be the bad cop and just go in there and be like, move out by this day, or I'm calling the cops on you, or I'm repoing all your stuff, right? And then you just leave and just like trust that they're going to do it, or you just like change the locks and you're done, right? But when you're the roommate, right? And he's like hiding in his room and just daring me because he knows he broke the rules. I know he broke the rules, and yet he's not moving out. I mean, guys, people debate over whether or not I should even share this, but like the first thing I did was like, just sit and just let my resentment fester for like 2 weeks before I figured out what I needed to do. And even then, it wasn't like it just rapped on his door, pat, 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 hey man, like pay up, right? It was like, let me type out this letter and then put it in an envelope and then tape it to his door.
Bless your heart.
Read it sooner or later.
Oh my God.
I didn't know it's for him.
Oh Lord, help me. I'm so sorry, honey. Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling you because I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, to play out, don't worry, guys. There's some measure of closure here, right? So
good to know.
I didn't say it's a happy ending. Well, I was relieved. It was a relieving ending, but not like a happy ending. I have to watch my phrasing there. But point is,
I just got that.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm like, that sounded kind of clumsy, but we're live.
So
it's okay.
slow.
No, like I said, I was just like, maybe that could have been a little more.
What are you talking about? We're the daily dose of
I
happy.
know, right? Now we're all adults here. It's fine.
Yeah, we're all.
I didn't realize I doubled my entente. It's okay.
I love it. That's great.
Oh my God. Okay, I got to hear this. I got to hear this.
Anyway, he comes back to me, the next morning. Oh, hey, this is unfair, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, what is unfair? You've already been living here for free for like another month, like pay up by the end of the month or, like move out your stuff before I call the cops on you because people are reminding me, Jerry, you're the landlord. You had a lease in place. You have legal precedent. Remember your authority. You have the option to call the cops and just get them off your premise for trespassing. Like you have that right. And it is well within your domain to do this. You are not doing anything inappropriate. It's not like you're sneaking to his room and like throwing out all the stuff and burning it right when he's not around. You're just saying, hey, you got to move or I'll have the cops move for you. So yeah, anyway, it was just kind of funny because he begged for an extension and I'm like, I don't want to be a jerk. And I was happening to go on vacation later that week. It's like, okay, you know what? I have 5 days. Like, yeah, like I gave you some more resources to find some more rent assistance. Go for it, right? And the morning of my trip, and he's like, hey, good morning. And I'm like, where's the money? I thought we agreed on this. And then I fly to my trip that Saturday night. Like I'm still getting texts from, hey man, I'm working really hard on it. And I'm just like, like, why are you doing this? And then Sunday morning, I'm going back through the security check-in line. And I just get this moment of clarity where he's just telling me basically that, he's just banking on the idea that, well, Jerry wants this rental money so much that he's willing to give me more room. And for some reason, I just had that moment of clarity when I finally responded to his text. And I just told him, I was like, look, it's not about the money anymore. This is about you not honoring deadlines and my struggle to enforce consequences when you don't. Please use any money you do obtain to cover rent at your next place of residence. Thanks. And only then, after I sent that text, I came home that I noticed boxes of his stuff on the first floor. And I did a double take, honestly. I was like, that's what it took to get through to him, and, it was sad. Like when he finally moved all the stuff out because he needed an extra day, like the original deadline to finally move on all the keys, which lost one key, assigned to him. And so he's like, here's your stuff back, which wasn't all of it. And it's like, yeah, hopefully I'll make you proud of me again. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, all right, let me just give him dignity regardless of how I feel about him. And then he left. And then it was quiet. And then the weight off my shoulders just went. And then I was like, this is kind of anticlimactic.
No, actually, it's beautiful because what you did is you practiced self-care.
Mm-hmm.
You practiced what you preach. You practice stepping into your power and not giving your power away, because every time we're not willing to use our truth, we're not willing to speak, we give our power away.
Of course.
Yeah, totally. So I love that. But I also love that moment of clarity you had where it was like, no.
Yeah.
No. I bet that was a trip. You go back and there's the boxes. It's like,
Yeah, right.
yeah. But you know, the thing about this beautiful experience is that you have that to use with your clients, and I love that. But thank you for sharing how that you use this in your own life. I'd like to also point out that for everybody listening, the level of vulnerability that you are showing here, because it takes a lot of vulnerability to share what's true. For people who tell you don't, the very ones that tell you don't do something, do it. Just do it. Just forget it. Just do it. They tell you don't do it. Do it.
It's a great
do
point.
it.
I love that. Yeah.
I mean, not jumping off the bridge or anything crazy.
Well, no, you want to avoid that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. But like, you know, the minute that somebody tells you go against your gut, when your gut's telling you, if I don't show up and if I'm not raw, authentic, real, vulnerable, and absolutely a shot of reality, you know, why would people are going to only listen to us if we're willing to show them the raw, real truth. Because here's the thing. If we do that, like you're doing, Jerry, then they get the permission to see it's safe to cross the bridge.
Yeah.
But what happened in this case is that Jerry got the permission within himself to say, "Oh, that's what it takes." He now had new information that he didn't have before about how do you deal with this kind of situation if it comes up. I mean, that's more valuable than anything. That's almost more valuable than the rent, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure at the time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's absolutely about process. Yeah, you know, money's nice. You know, I need more to get my coaching practice to pivot from my career thing from, you know, pharmacy to like full-time leadership coach. But, you know, money's secondary to impact. And so, yeah, you know, at least let me go ahead and demonstrate, I'm going to be open and authentic and dependable and professional and see who wants to work with that kind of coach. Right.
Great job finding your value and your worth.
Thanks.
I have a meeting and I'm going to have to roll before Unify. Jerry, I have to tell you, it's been seriously delightful. You are awesome. I love what you do. Thanks. And thank you for showing up vulnerably. Hey, Walt, Jerry, you want to see the video that played at Times Square?
Yeah.
It's only 30 seconds.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Since the launch of Unify on Winter Solstice 2012, we have organized more than 100 synchronized global meditations for world peace and gathered over 400 million people in 10,000 cities in over 150 countries. The time for peace is now more than ever. On September 21st, 2022, in Times Square, New York, Unify will participate in the Pause the World for Peace event, our global broadcast that you can watch at unify.org/peace will feature the moment of silence at noon Eastern Time. World peace through inner peace. Namaste.
Beautiful. Oh, yeah. Well done. Woo! All right.
And we have a group video this time that we'll be putting out for Unify in Times Square on September 21st. And again, anybody that wants to send us a peace practice, please do it, Debbie at unify.org. I sound like a freaking newscaster in that though, like for real. With a proof.
I mean, you just need to work on the enunciation and the rest falls into place. It's great. That's all.
My enunciation. What's wrong with my enunciation?
It's fine.
Did I do nothing?
Yeah, but that's okay. That's part of it. That's part of the beauty of it.
I didn't get the right. I don't even know. Look, when you get called at 10 o'clock at night to do a video and have it turned in by midnight, you're going to get what you're going to get.
See, this is true. No, you did a great job. You did a really great job.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, you know, thank you. But it was really a joy. But this is all about all of us joining together in unity. This is seriously the time for all of us to put away the race, the creed, the judgment, the belief systems that any of us are different. I grew up thinking that if you were to cut yourself and you bled red, you were the same as me because I knew no differently. And if they bleed green, I mean, go ahead, Trip, go for it, because that's a little bit weird, but just saying.
That's like, that's the basics for becoming wealthy. Hey, my friend bleeds green. Take a look. This is cool.
Seriously, like what? Other than that, I don't even get it. And we don't need to get it. I'm over that. We are here for world unity. We are truly all one in this divine world, and we are all a spark of the divine. Jerry, you are a spark of the divine. You're a spark of God stepping forward, no matter what your religion, no matter what you believe. And thank you for being here and for showing up, because we need people like you to show all of us what's possible. Seriously. Thank you.
Grateful for you. Yeah.
Grateful for you too.
Grateful for you, Debbie G. I mean, man, you're just like, you come in here and you spread the Debbie G vibe, and you just lift all of us up. I mean, anybody who's been listening for the last 40 minutes knows exactly what I'm talking about. Like, whoa, what was that whoosh? That was the Debbie G whoosh. That's what that was.
From within, out. I love you guys very much. And thank you all, because I love how you see me. You rock my world. And I will be back. Jerry, I look forward to interviewing you sometime. You're cool. And I will see you all later, because I got to go get on that meeting.
Good luck with the upcoming event. That's going to be good stuff.
Yeah. Send me a meditation wall.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Jerry,
right.
send me yeah, I'm telling you. All right. Bye, guys.
See you later. Actually, Jerry, she brought something up interesting to me that I want to kind of tie into, because I was thinking earlier, like I mentioned to you before, how this is going to be the 10th anniversary month for doing the podcast. I was thinking back to an interview I did about 9 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was with an Asian American. I think he was from Southeast Asia. I'm going to guess. I think it was Vietnam, either Vietnam or Cambodia. I can't remember which one.
Okay.
And he was talking about his experience, how he had been extremely successful. He'd created mega corporations. He had made millions and millions and millions, and he had burned himself out. Mm. And then he reinvented his priorities and actually became a coach, helping other people, also Asian Americans, who run into the same kind of thing. And he was telling me about some of the ways that lessons get handed down, particularly within Asian families. And in his experience, Asian American families, that kind of lead to that kind of experience. So I just wanted to ask you, do you see the same kind of thing? Because you specifically work with Asian Americans on this conflict resolution journey that you're on. And so do you encounter that kind of thing when you're working with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, they call it heritage for a reason, right? Like you inherit everything, and whether good or bad. And so I'll give an example. Right, so I can totally hear my grandpa telling my dad this when he was growing up.
It's funny how that happens.
This is how it goes. So here's a fun wrinkle. I didn't put two and two together until recently. My grandpa, my paternal grandfather, grew up in Taiwan during World War II, which meant that Taiwan was under imperial control.
Right.
I was like, why does grandpa know German and Japanese? That's why. And so this Japanese gets handed down to my dad, and my dad hands it down to me in the following form, because like I said, it'll make sense once after I say it. At one point, my dad was teaching me math one Saturday morning, as good Asian parents do, instead of watching cartoons, because we're playing a long game. And at one point, I'm struggling to comprehend a concept as quickly as my dad thinks I should. Because he knows I'm a smart kid, and he's like, no, you should understand this. So in order to get this point across, he proceeds to tell me two words in Japanese. He goes, head, adama, concrete, konkuri, adama konkuri. And I'm just like, you taught me Japanese to insult me. And I could totally hear my grandpa telling my dad the same thing.
Wow.
Hear it, and I'm just like, where did this come from? And so to remind myself that my parents just they said, whether through fear or joy, we want you to work hard. And in this case, if you weren't doing well enough on your own, then we had to turn up the fear in order to make sure you didn't just settle for less. And it was hard to give grace to my parents for a season. And I mean, I'm struggling with it now because, we had, when they found that I'd filed my own LLC for this business. Like,
that was probably revolutionary, I would think.
What are you doing? Like, you have a pharmacy job, it pays well. And as far as we can tell, I mean,
when they pay you.
Bounced. So what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, this is what I want to do. Well, we don't think, what is this? We don't even know what this is. Like, don't do it. It's like, wow, what do I do for that? right? But I've been the good son for so long. It's a threat on my identity. Oh God, how do I mean, even when I took this consulting job, right, with this consulting company, my parents are like, and it was a part-time job too. So I'm taking a pay cut,
right?
Less money per hour, fewer hours per week, no sign of benefits unless I earn my way into a full-time position. And my parents are like, what are you doing? Like this company had everything for you that we know is important to you. Why are you walking away from this? And just a clash of values, right? Like, I don't, I'm glad you are okay with suffering for a lifetime and then just, being happy that somehow your kids are better off. But maybe and I don't want to feel like a selfish jerk for wanting this for myself because I want to feel alive.
I was thinking about what you're talking about here in the context of your story, where you described how you had one job after another that had tremendous trials and tribulations associated with it. Not being paid, working with criminals, working with all kinds of terrible situations, one after another. And I'm thinking about that from a law of attraction perspective. Law of attraction being what you give your attention to predominantly, that's what you get more of.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, there's a pattern going on here. What's the root of the pattern? And I think you just gave us what the root of the pattern is. You had this set of expectations that you've been dealing with all your life.
Yeah.
And you, on a soul level, your soul was saying, no. Mm-hmm. And so you were basically self-sabotaging your own career in order to get to the point where you wanted to get to.
Yeah. I mean, there's sometimes we succeed because of us. Sometimes we succeed in spite of ourselves. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I tell people, they're like, you've been through a lot. I'm just like, look, it's not the path I would have chosen for myself, but it's exactly the path I've chosen for myself. Right. And, there's times to reframe well. Like I tell people, leadership was such a struggle to the point where it became a fascination. It's like, what's the alternative? I work for this chain pharmacy for the rest of my life, and I just wonder what my life might have been. Is that what I would have been willing to settle for? That's the default that I would have. That was my default trajectory if I hadn't shaken things up.
Because what you were really doing is you were going inside and you were listening to yourself.
Yeah.
To your real, true, authentic self.
There you go.
Which is what our heritages don't want us to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's the one thing you're not allowed to do. Don't listen to that internal voice. That internal voice is the devil.
Yeah.
Right. Like you don't want to go there. Well, actually you do, because that's where all the wisdom is.
Yeah.
But you dared. You dared to go within, and I credit you for that, because I know what that's like. I think all of us know on one level, through our own experiences, what that's like. But in my own experience, I know what that's like. Yeah. I grew up not in that kind of scenario, but in a somewhat related scenario where everything was about the surface. What's out on the surface? How are you looking to others? How are you reacting with others? And by the way, we're also going to tear everybody down while we're doing it. Mm-hmm. That was my growing up period, right? And then I grew up in a Christian household, as most Americans do. And I actually did something you're not supposed to do. I studied the religion. I didn't just accept it on faith. I actually read the Bible cover to cover. Oh my God, what the hell is this?
I got a great joke for you. Yeah.
So I went inside too, but it's not easy to do. That's my point. And it's something that's worthy of recognition, because those of us who are willing to go inside, we're the ones daring to climb outside of that comfort zone you were talking about earlier. We're daring to actually go where it would be disapproved of to go there. And we're achieving the greatest information and knowledge and understanding by doing it in the process. But so the rewards are great, but it takes that dare to do it.
Good. Yeah. To your point, real quick, I know we're coming up on time, but the joke that came to mind when you said that was, and I know I'm probably going to polarize a lot of people, and that's okay, because it
happens.
It's the self-aware ones will be good sports. The stubborn ones will run bias. And I'm going to out this. One of the funniest jokes I heard was, what's the difference between a Christian and an atheist?
Give up.
An atheist has read the Bible.
Oh, yes.
It's like, I actually read the book, and it's got some really weird stuff that you just kind of gloss over.
So. Yeah, I remember having the conversations because my family was the leading family in the church. We were the largest donors. We were like major players in the church. Yeah. And so I was taught to become part of Bible study.
Yeah.
So I actually came in with Bible study questions that just weren't on the agenda.
Those technically are the best ones. Those are led by the Holy Spirit.
Talk about getting yourself in trouble, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
But I
You
learned a
needed
whole
to
lot through that process. And you're right. I actually did go to atheism first, but I didn't stay there. I went to atheism, and then I went to agnosticism, and stayed there for quite some time, sort of like halfway in between there, until I had my crash and burn. And then I found what I call the new spirituality, which is where I am right now. And that completely changed my life for the better. But it's been quite a journey to get there. So yeah, I did start that path, but I didn't finish the path that same way. And I think more and more people are doing that today, which I find to be very encouraging. I don't know about you, but I think it's really encouraging.
No, I think as long as people are willing to go through the exercise, right? I can't tell you where you're going to end up on the spectrum. That's not for me to decide. But for people to realize, hey, you know what? There's a spiritual component here. I can't afford to ignore anymore, right? Because I talked to someone earlier today, a friend that was like, yeah, relationship wise, I'm great. Business is decent enough. Like, I'm thankful for my girlfriend. We have a healthy relationship right now. Friends are great. I have a nice routine. He's like, but spiritually, there's a longing there that I'm struggling to address, and part of it is just his own like scar because he grew up in the Mormon Church, and that's a whole other discussion. Yeah. But point being, right? He's like, yeah, like, you're fed answers for a point, and then after a while, you start to grow, and you realize, wait, why is this the way it is, and who says it's true? And, so for people to be willing to go on that journey, yeah, absolutely. I do agree. I mean, we can disagree with like whether or not it leads to like a nice trajectory, but I do believe there's merit in the exercise.
Yeah.
That much I'll celebrate for sure.
It almost doesn't even matter what conclusions you come to.
True.
It almost doesn't even matter because the thing that I've noticed is no matter whether you go down a religious path or just a more generally spiritual path or I'm not even sure path, but you're kind of exploring it, everybody seems to end up in the same place. They express it differently. They perhaps thinking about it differently, but ultimately, when you take what they've found, it all adds up to the same thing. That I find that to be intriguing. We all seem to end up with the same. I would have thought we'd have come up with like 7 billion different answers, and to an extent we do. But God, the amount of overlap is just amazing to me.
It is, and yeah, I mean, as long as we're human, there's only so much wiring that we have, right? I mean, everyone's got a brain, everyone's got teeth, everyone's got eyes. So, sometimes things don't come out and develop the way that they, should, but the emotions are always going to be there, right?
Yeah.
The processing, all that will be there. How people end up, how come this Muslim became a Christian and how come this Christian became a Muslim? Like, and then, both of them, what do you do with this? And it's, just sit back and study why. Like, let's just get curious about why. Why do people end up the way they do, right? And that's okay. Like, you may not agree with the conclusion, but that doesn't mean to treat them any less human.
Absolutely. In fact, I actually go past why, and I'm more interested in what you come up with.
Yeah.
To me, that's the fun part.
Yeah,
that's where you find the common ground. With why you can find all the disagreements all the time, But what is where you find the common ground? That's where you find the stuff that you agree on.
I love that.
Yeah. Actually, I think that's pretty cool. Hey, one thing we haven't talked about yet. You have something on your website. You have a giveaway there that sounded pretty cool, and I want you to tell people a little bit about it. Remind me what the title was, because I'm having trouble.
It's a simple framework for difficult conversations.
Right. Okay. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So this is the one thing I love giving away, because I know how much I use it, because I take my own medicine, right? I don't tell you to take this medicine unless I'm taking it.
There you go.
Right. And so I tell people, this is basically the conflict resolution guide for conflict averse people, and say, okay, there's 5 steps, and I know for time I'll make it relatively quick and let them read it for themselves in detail when they download it. So step 1, right? We kind of hinted at this with the case study earlier. Yeah. Imagine a successful conversation. You know what? Maybe I just need to ask my roommate to put away the dishes and he'll do it. Maybe it's that easy, right? Step 2, 10 seconds of courage. Hey, initiate this conversation, send the text, pick up the phone, send the email, like set the boulder in motion, lock the gate behind you so you can't backtrack or rationalize. You can't be like, oh, maybe I was just kidding. Maybe it's not so bad, right? Let's just cut that out. Step 3, you want to script your critical phrasing, right? You want to say, okay, what do I want to say? Let me put this down. on paper. Let me get it out of my head, put it down on paper. Let me organize my thoughts. Let me anticipate the pushback. Let me counter the counter. How am I going to respond when my boss says money's too tight to give me a raise right now, right? You need to be ready for that, right? And then step 4, you want to rehearse these critical moves, right? You want to practice in front of a mirror, record yourself on your phone, role play with your friend. Hey, can you be this boss? And pretend that I need to get a raise from you. And then step 5, do it. Hey, you didn't just do all this homework just to feel good about yourself, right? You did it to make a difference. And when you realize, hey, you know what, that didn't quite land, the way I wanted it to. Okay, are you done? Like, well, no. Like, okay, try again. So now that you have evidence of one path, well, now you can study something, because you can't study something you haven't done before, right? You can't study experience you haven't done. So now that you have the experience, let's study this experience. Like, that's what I did with the roommate had to evict, right? It's like, okay, this approach didn't work. Okay, am I done? No, he's not gone. Right. I got it. So yeah, that can be found at adaptingleaders.com/guide, GUIDE.
All right.
Email address, and we'll send it right to you.
We'll make sure we get the link for that in the show notes too, to make it really easy for people to find. I love that. I especially love the second step. That's not one we've talked about on the show. The only other time I've ever heard that 10 seconds of courage was in a relatively obscure Matt Damon movie called We Bought a Zoo. And he uses that phrase. Have you seen that movie?
I have not. That was the Cameron Crowe movie, right? Like, I think,
Yeah.
He's
really good, really interesting movie. I mean, certainly not one of his famous ones, but very worth watching. And toward the end, he uses that phrase, 10 seconds of courage. And I won't even spoil the scene. I often do spoilers. I won't do a spoiler this time. You got to go see the movie yourself. But I love the phrase because what it basically does is it challenges you to do the one thing you really don't want to do. Get out of that comfort zone.
Yeah. You're like,
you only have to do it for 10 seconds. That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. What do people want to do, right? Oh, I got to put on the whole superhero costume. It's like, that might take 3 weeks. Like, you don't need to be a superhero. Just a superhero for 10 seconds. Can you do that much? I could be Superman for 10 seconds. Let me send that text. Done. Oh, crap. What have I done? It's okay. It's okay. It's the first step toward progress. Here you go. So,
yeah. I like that. That's really good. Because with 10 seconds of courage, you can do almost anything.
Oh, it's scary. Yeah. It
really is. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. And I do this to myself all the time, where I'm just kind of like, I haven't sent this email yet. Okay, 10 seconds of courage. 10 seconds of courage. 10 seconds of courage. You're like, all right, fire off the email, send.
Chew on the fingernails.
Yeah, I know. Right. But only, right? What's the default? Are you okay with the results if you don't do anything?
Yeah.
Tough one.
Once again, we're back to that same point again. How much pain are you willing to experience?
Yeah, there you go.
How many 2x4s to the side of the head are you willing to accept from the universe before you finally take that 10 seconds of courage?
Oh, yeah. Like, to be easy real quick, and you let me know when we need to stop. But one of the funniest negative reinforcement situations, but very effective negative reinforcement situations I learned about was a high school German teacher for like her advanced class. She would have Fridays where students could only speak in German, or she would just take points off their grades. Right. And people were like, ha ha ha. Like, she wouldn't actually do that. They're like, oh, Danny, that's saying English -5. And it was like, whoa. And they're like, gotta say something in German. Otherwise she's gonna just take points off. That's not fair. Oh, that's also English -5. Thanks. You're like, ooh, okay. I can complain, but if I'm going to do it, I better do it in German so she doesn't take more points off my grade.
That's where you learn to swear in German.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably get written up for that one too. But still.
95, yeah.
If you do get written up for it, the principal doesn't understand what you said anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I had a friend who would wear like European soccer jerseys to his like Texas high school, and it would have like European beers. Like across the logos would be across his jersey, but he never got in trouble because it wasn't like Budweiser or things like that. So you're like, oh, so if I learn to swear in French, no one will understand.
Dude, there you go.
French teacher. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, I totally agree with Debbie. This has been an absolute treat talking with you. We really appreciate what you do, what you have been doing, and wish you all the best going forward. One thing I do want to tell you that I make it a point now to tell all of my guests who are big givers to the world, and you're a big giver to the world, There are many people out there whom you have never met, whom you never will meet, who you've never seen, who have read something that you wrote, like your freebie there, or seen you on a podcast, or heard you speak on something, and you affected their lives for the better.
Yeah.
On their behalf, thank you for what you do, because you touch so many important lives in such an important way.
Goosebumps, Lowell. Goosebumps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. May I leave you with one final story? Just
Absolutely.
to really get this point across. Yeah. There's a great story in a book called The Charisma Myth. Talking about, is charisma something inherent to people, or is this a skill you can develop? And the author starts off with the story of William Gladstone running against Benjamin Disraeli. And there's a woman that they both talk to, trying to convince them that they're the one that he should vote for Prime Minister of England, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they asked her later, they said, what did you think of Mr. Gladstone? She goes, I thought he was the cleverest person in England. And they said, well, what did you think of Mr. Disraeli? I thought I was the cleverest person in England. Guess who won?
Yeah.
People think so. Oh, he was the cleverest person in England. No.
Disraeli.
So thank you.
He's actually one of the most famous prime ministers in British history.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he must have been doing something right. But thank you for making me feel like the cleverest person in England.
You really are. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.